So at the time of recording, it's January 3rd, 2022, and I'm already 7 days ahead of most people. Let me explain. I'm sure you've all seen that meme where it's like the time period between December 25th and January 1st, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't really do anything. It's kind of just an absolutely just nothing period for me. I briefly touched on this in my last video, which should be popping up right about now, but that was recorded on the 28th of December, and the year hadn't completely done yet, but I already had in mind a plan of what I was going to do leading into the new year, and I pretty much delivered on what I said I was going to do. So at the 28th, I had the day off because it was the Boxing Day public holiday from my office gig. I returned to work on the 29th, and I worked until like 4:30, which is our usual hours. And then I started work at Woolies at 6, but in between that time, obviously there was a drive to work, but I also did some study. Now, CPA doesn't actually start for almost another month yet, and I'm already doing some study, so I'm already getting ahead. And I worked a second shift that day. So on the 29th of December 2021, I basically worked two jobs and did some study. Like, what do most people do on the 29th of December each year? Like, they do nothing. Like, I also mentioned this in the other video. I basically said if your job's shut for the Christmas period, then obviously you can't work. But the concept is most people don't do anything in that time. Like, they won't even, like, gym or anything. Like, the only reason I didn't gym that day was because I literally did not have time. Like, I couldn't go after my Woolly shift because I had the office gig again on the 30th. So yeah, on the 30th, I worked at the office again, and then the same deal, finished at 4:30, then started at Woolies at 6. I did a bit of study, but I also did some content related stuff on my business. I've just got written here that I did work on my side hustle. I don't exactly document what it is. I just document if I've done work for it or not. But more than likely, it was just some content. Like, I can't actually think of it off my head. I may have started writing a script to do with a video I've got coming up, or maybe I guess, yeah, probably created some TikTok content or something like that, did something on the Instagram page. But, you know, that's another very productive day on the 30th of December when most people aren't really doing much. Almost the same story on the 31st. We had work back at the office again, but we shut at 4 due to the whole New Year's Eve thing. I didn't have Woolies that night, though, which is unusual. I normally close New Year's Eve. But um, after work, I did a little bit more work on the business and study. Well, actually, no, I did study. And then after that, I went to the beach because it was a pretty hot day. Now, I know it's kind of not really a grind thing, going to the beach to relax. But basically, one of the main reasons I went was to stockpile some vitamin D. So I sit in an office all day and I sit in a car, and by the time I get home, usually I'll have the gym afterwards, and by the time I'm done with gym, most of the sun's gone for the day. So I don't get too much vitamin D. Like, I sit outside of my lunch breaks to try and get some. But yeah, I went to the beach to basically just stockpile some vitamin D. I was there for about an hour. Vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, so it's basically, long story short, it can kind of stay in your system a bit longer. It's not something you have to constantly intake, although that is ideal. You can get away with, I guess, stockpiling it. Now, obviously, be careful of skin cancer and all that stuff, but that goes without saying, really. But basically, after the beach, I went to the gym. Like, I was already kind of tired from the beach because I did some boogie boarding, and I hadn't really eaten since about like 2:30 because I didn't want my food going off in the car, so I had to eat it at work. It's not going to go off in your car while I'm at the beach because it's a pretty sweltering hot day. And I don't really like leaving my windows down just because every time I do, there's always spiders in the car. I don't want to be driving and get jump scared by a massive huntsman, you know what I'm saying? So I went to the gym after that, and that session was an hour and a half. Um, oh, that's what that side hustle thing is. So I was filming some of my gym sessions, which I used for some TikToks, um, which will be linked in the description. But basically, yeah, I was filming just some of my workouts and some of my sets. Well, I not some of my workouts. I filmed some of the workout. And the gym I went to was a Deramuts gym, and those gyms are huge and they're usually pretty packed, but it was so quiet that night. Like I was kind of expecting it to be because of New Year's Eve, but there was more people than I was expecting. Like there's maybe like 8 in the whole gym, which was basically like 7 more people than I was expecting. You know, I was kind of expecting to be the only one there. And it was good to see some people were putting in the work. Now, obviously, with that being said, maybe some people had the day off and they gymmed earlier in the day, but you know, regardless, it was good to see people putting in the work on the eve of the new year. So after the gym, I went home and I basically just I had to have a shower because I was at the beach in the gym, and then I did some cooking for dinner. Most people just get takeout or some shit. I like literally cooked my eggs and spinach and whatnot as well. And I spent most of the night doing. I did a little bit of study, but basically I did some rebranding for the names of my businesses. The previous name for this corporate related business was The Game of Life, or no, it was Game of Life actually. And my fitness related business was Gains of Life. Now I it was called Gains of Life just because I wanted it to be somewhat like the name to be somewhat intertwined with the corporate one. And then the idea behind the name of the corporate one was to basically treat life as a video game. You know, you level up, you like level up your stats, and then that makes the game easier. You know, it's like you go and get a useful degree or a useful education or useful trade or some shit, and it makes it easier to find a job. Right, it's the same sort of shit. For example, when I started university, I was enrolled in an economics major. Now, throughout the uni course, we did one particular subject, and the idea behind it was to basically prepare you for the real world. Somewhat like they didn't teach like, you know, taxes or getting a house or any of that sort of stuff, but they did teach you basically the real world job market in a way and how to develop your professional brand, so to speak. You know, the kind of stuff that they should have taught you in high school, but they don't. So, really, only some university students get this kind of knowledge. But basically, there was one website, and I cannot remember it for the life of me. And I've actually lost my notes um, on that subject I did because I did it back in late 2016, and all those subjects were on a laptop that's now corrupted. So, I'm sorry, I can't actually grab that info for you. But basically, it was a government website. And what it did was it had some projections of job growths for certain industries. You know, you click on, I don't know, nurses, for example. Obviously, there's always going to be demand for them. So they were going up. Certain trades, they were going up. Um, and I had a look at economics, and it was relatively flat. If not, it was declining over the next 10 years. I think the graph only went about 10 years. I think it's a bit, you know, anything more than 10 years is a little bit too far to judge. I mean, even 10 years might be a bit much, but the point is the government wasn't projecting many jobs for economics related, I guess, professionals going forward. Obviously, there's some jobs related to the government in economics, but to get a government job, you need pretty good grades, and my grades were already so bad at that point, which is another thing I'll eventually talk about. But I was like, oh crap, like I'm basically at uni to get a job, you know what I'm saying? I'm not there to just have some fun in a way. So then I was looking through other, I guess, corporate related stuff. I think there was some growth for finance. I really can't remember. This was like 6 years ago, or 5, 6 years ago at this point, right? But I wasn't too interested in finance back then, like I am now. Like I literally researched some of it in my spare time. But back then I really had no interest in it. But then I had a look at accounting, and that had some pretty good job growth. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I know a little bit about this thing. Like, I didn't actually enjoy accounting much in year 11 and 12. In fact, I actually dropped it in year 12, if you could believe that. Like, I dropped the year 12 accounting subject a couple of weeks in because I just didn't enjoy it. And I dropped it to make room for a theatre studies class because I thought, and turns out it was, going to be easy. And it was at like an all girls school. So I went to an all boys school. I was at an all girls school down the road, and then one of my close mates at the time, him and I don't really talk anymore, but we had like no classes together through most of high school. So then we figured if we pick that, we'll have a class together. Now, it was so much fun and I don't regret it at all, but that just shows like my mindset back then, right? Like, I was willing to just drop some of the hard shit to do some easy shit. Like, that's crazy. I would never even consider doing anything close to that these days. But that's besides the point. The point I'm getting at is I saw that if I wanted to get a job, it was probably a good idea to switch my major to accounting. And I did. I was like, well, I'll learn to like it. That's just part of being an adult sometimes. You just got to learn to like doing things. I remember watching some Ziz article back in 2015. Any of my gym rats will know our Lord and Savior Ziz. And he was talking about his diet, and he was basically going through it. And then he said towards the end of the paragraph, he's like, if you don't like any of these foods, you'll learn to love them, or something like that. Basically, he was implying that, well, if you don't like it, well, grow up, learn to like it, It's like a gotta do what you gotta do type thing. So then I haven't really used that as like my life motto or anything, but I've definitely used it to a lot of situations. Like, well, if you don't like it, learn to like it. You have to do it. So you're better off learning to like it. Jesus, I've rambled so much I almost forgot what the original point I was getting at. So yeah, the whole game of life thing, the name of my brand, your level up type thing. I was actually watching a video on my lunch break on the 31st. And at some point in the video, this guy was talking about professional development or like some sort of mini short courses in some career of some sort. And he said something about the businesses try to make a gamification of the study. Like, basically, you'd get points and shit for it. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. The word gamification. That's so good. So then I went around back to all the socials and renamed them. And the usernames were actually available on the social media. Like Game of Life, I had to put in like underscores and like a little 9 at the end. 9 is basically been my number in basketball for as long as I can remember. So it's like the name at the end of my personal social medias and shit as well. But then it just doesn't look as professional if you've got like a number or a space. But if you've got like just basically the name at whatever, then yeah, it looks more professional. And they were free. I was like, oh, thank God that no one's taken this name, and I can't believe I didn't think of that earlier. Like, it's such a good business name. And then I renamed Gains of Life to Gainsification because it's kind of similar. It's hopefully the name catches on. I mean, I'm sure you can pick apart any business name out there and it sounds silly. Like Amazon, it's just like the giant rainforest in Africa. Apple, it's just a fruit. Microsoft sounds cool, but if you say it over and over again, it starts to sound stupid. But whatever, you get the point I'm trying to get at. It's just a name. It'll catch on, hopefully. If not, well, oh well. So I went on another I got sidetracked again, But basically, that's what I did New Year's Eve. I was rebranding all the names. I intended on being asleep by 12, to be honest, but I spent so long getting the names out, and I spent a while chewing through my dinner and whatnot. That it was like 11:20, and I had to still brush teeth and get my lunch ready for tomorrow and all that stuff. I was like, look, I may as well just stay up for the fireworks anyway. So yeah, whatever. Just watched the fireworks at home, then went to bed. I don't know, got maybe 6 hours sleep before work the next day, which a lot of people think's a lot, but I try and get 8. Like I just can't really. I mean, I can function off 6, but it's nowhere near optimal. Like I try to make sleep a priority. Um, but then yeah, on the 1st of January, um, was everyone hungover? I'm pretty sure everyone was hungover, right? Um, I Sorry, just grabbing up my notes. Yeah, I worked 8 to 5. I didn't need my notes for that. I already knew that. But I worked 9 hours. I got 8 paid hours because an hour unpaid lunch break. I worked 9 hours at public holiday rates. So I think it works out to be a bit above $55 an hour where I am. Like when you factor in the other shifts that are going to be included in that paycheck and the tax bracket and all that nonsense, I'm not exactly sure how much it'll be, but it's a lot more than what most people got paid on January 1st from just being hungover, I guess. Hey, and after that, despite not having ideal sleep and working 9 hours, I went to the gym afterwards. Now, another reason I went to the gym was because it was air conditioned. Like, it was just so hot on Saturday, it wasn't even funny. But yeah, I spent an hour and 40 minutes at the gym. I'm pretty sure there's some TikToks I made on the 1st about it. I just filmed a few sets and whatnot. It was like an upper sesh. Um, I revamped my gym sessions. So I used to basically have my top sets and my compound lifts like in the 3 to 5 rep range, but now I'm extending it to the 8 to 10. And it already feels so much better. Like I feel like I can just get through the session a lot easier when I don't have to lift as heavy after I've been so tired. So yeah, that was just so much fun, which makes it so much easier to stick to. You know, you've had a long day, you don't want to be going to a gym session you don't want to do. So that's fantastic. Like I already can't wait for gym tomorrow night. Like the only reason I'm not gymming on today is because I've gymmed the last 3 days, and then the 2 days preceding I was at work, so I need a bit of a breather. And plus, I plan on gymming the next 3 days anyway. So not gonna work 2 nights, then gym 7 nights in a row, plus with basically full-time work on each of those days. It's just like I like grinding, but like there's a fine line. I've also got written on my calendar that I did work on the side hustle on the Saturday night, which would obviously be the TikToks I made. Basically, it was just a real quick day in the life thing. It was just a snippet of the Snapchat I took with the date and the time on it, just to prove that it's not just some other snap I took. I was there at the time. It was a pretty busy shift at work. Like the department manager wasn't there, so I had to do a lot of the I wouldn't exactly call it manager work, but manager-esque work. Like you do the batches for the stock that needs to go. So you got to reduce it. You got to figure out how much it needs to be reduced by, so that your dump targets aren't too high. But you also get rid of the stock. Just general inventory checks, date checks, auditing of booklets, checking the on-show stock levels in other departments. Like it wasn't just a cruisy shift, unfortunately. It was kind of hectic. But I guess that's another thing you could talk about. Like, some people, maybe they did work, but it was just a cruisy day. Like I had a pretty full-on day that day. So that's, yeah, January 1st, I worked 9 hectic hours, had pretty good upper body session, and put out content for the businesses. And on January 2nd, pretty much repeated that. Had work again, But this time it was 7 till 4 instead of 8 till 5. Went to the gym from 4:30 till 6. That gym session was slightly shorter because it was a leg day, and the workout is um, on the TikToks. But basically, I do 3 sets of high bar squats. I used to do low bar. Like, you can lift more. Most people can lift more due to basically the anatomical structure of where the bar's placed and how you basically lean forward a bit. Hips sink back a bit more as well. It feels like it's lesser range of motion for me, but that could just be the way I squat high bar. But it bugs my shoulders too much, and I don't want to risk any sort of injury. Like, I've basically had no real injuries throughout my whole gym career. Like, I've had niggling pains here and there, and basically it's mainly due to overtraining or curling my wrists too much when I'm benching or doing pull-ups, which puts pressure on the wrist, which leads down to your elbows and shoulders. I don't know the exact science or ana- ana- anatomy behind it, but basically you just don't curl your wrists when you do that kind of crap. But yeah, the point I'm getting at is I don't want to get injured. So if it means I have to lift a little bit less, then so be it. I'm not a power lifter anyway. I don't compete in strength sports. I don't plan to. I don't get paid for it. So, the risk to reward ratio is simply not there for me. I do 1 set of front squats. The front squat, good movement and all that. I get deeper range of motion for the quads. It's good for the core and all that. But basically, I just want to front squat a lot, and I like to just practice the movement. So again, it's primarily a more so a fun thing for me, but it is, it is a good hypertrophy or strength movement in its own right. And then I do 1 set of goblet squats as just extra volume for the quad. I got my own reasons, but that's probably not what you're here for. You're not here to hear about my gym routine. You're probably here to hear about, the whole grind, getting ahead, all that stuff. And I've got the note that says side hustle for that night, which was obviously the other TikToks I made for that day. So, it's January 3rd, and I've already done all that in the last 5 days. Like, what have most people done in the last 5 days? Like, bugger all, really. Like, I don't know where you guys are from or if anyone's even listening to this, but where I'm from, there's some festival around the area. I won't name it because if someone I know is listening to this, they might. I've already, like, if you know me personally, you've probably figured out who I am by now, but it would further solidify my location. So I'm not going to, but basically all you need to do is all you need to know is it's some massive outdoor festival type thing. And yeah, Snapchat was just absolutely loaded with that stuff. Like, I reckon more than half of my list was there. Now, I'm not here to bash them or anything. Like, if you want to enjoy, your time off and bring in the new year in that way, then that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm better than you just because I worked and studied and gymmed that time instead. But if you're going to complain about me having more money or looking better or being further ahead in my career than you are in the next few years, take a step back and realize that while you're not putting in the work, I am. Like, that's what I mean when I titled this, it's January 3rd and I'm 7 days ahead, because the 7 days before this date, leading back into late 2021, I was still putting in work while you were getting ready for a festival or having days off. So, yeah, I'm 7 days ahead. Unless you have some blue shell from Mario Kart to hit me, then you're not really going to get ahead now, because I don't really have any plans to take any sort of breaks. Like, I can handle a lot of work. Like, I mean, I was saying earlier how I didn't gym today because it was too much, but like, that's 3 days of gym in a row and 2 days of work. Like, that's already a lot. Um, If you can somehow handle more than that, then you're going to end up better than me. But I very much doubt you'll be able to sustain that for a long period of time. You might burn out and you might need to take a week off. Whereas I only really need to take a night off here and there just to sustain myself. Geez, I keep getting off topic, but the point is I'm already ahead, and I'm going to continue to be ahead. And the only way you can really keep up is if you are willing to make those sacrifices, right now, to put in the extra days to get those few days ahead. I also mentioned it in a bit in my other video too, about how most people just work 5 days a week and they call it quits, whereas I basically work 7. Obviously, I'll have public holidays here and I'll take annual leave here and there. But I mean, no one really works 5 days a week for a full year. There's public holidays and their own time off, and they're sick and blah, blah, blah. But like my contractual obligation is 7 days a week. And again, I also mentioned it in the other video, but most people quit their part-time job as soon as they get a new full-time one, which I don't think that that's the best idea, but to each their own. But I worked 102 shifts at my part-time job in 2021, whereas most people worked 0 because they quit their part-time job when they get their full-time. So, that's 102 shifts of extra money I have. And I also mentioned in that video, I used that, that money was the 5% deposit I put in land, which is a head start that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But anyway, back on track. I got sidetracked again. Back on track for, 2022. It's the 3rd. I have the day off due to the public holiday from my office job. And I'm sitting in my car recording this. Now, I can't really sit in my room because my house is kind of not super soundproof and everyone's kind of home, so there'd be a loud ruckus and everything. And I don't really want them interrupting this. To be honest, I don't even know if they know I do this, but it's my own nice little secret, I guess, my own little double life. But, I could just as easily just be sitting around watching Netflix or playing video games or something, but I'm out here recording stuff for my business. Some people would call this a hobby. I guess in a way it could be considered a hobby, but I have full intentions of turning it into a business. Going forward, full transparency. I'm not going to, bullcrap any of you. At the present moment, it could be legally considered a hobby, based on the Australian Taxation Office guidelines. But if you look at my intent, it will be considered a business due to it being regular and repetitive and blah, blah, blah. But, I'm working on this. I'm working on a side hustle when I could be doing nothing, especially since I've had a lot of work lately and I'm back at work tomorrow and I'm out here putting in work. Like I also mentioned in my other video, I said something like, I don't even know if anyone's going to see this. And the same with this video, like I don't know if anyone's going to see this. I saw the views were slowly going up on my other video, but I don't know how. I haven't actually checked the analytics yet. I don't know if anyone's even, they may have just clicked on it for 2 seconds and hopped back out. Like maybe it was an accident. Maybe no one's even listening to this point of the video. But I want any of you guys listening to this part to know that there are other people out there who are putting in the work behind the scenes. I'm sure when you see on Snapchat, everyone's out there just partying and just doing whatever, living it up while they're young with no regard for what the future holds. There are people out there who are working during that time, or they're sleeping to put in another productive day tomorrow. And like later today, I'll like whip up this video and put it online, but then I've got to sort out my new diet for 2022 because I've realized that it's quite pointless to continue cutting. So I'm going to start a bulk, but every bulk I do, I always go way too over my calories, and then I gain too much fat and then I have to cut it all off, and then, you lose muscle. So I've got to sort that out, whereas most people don't really have one. I'm not calling it a New Year's resolution because it's just the same shit I've been doing year in, year out the past several years. But I do need to adjust my diet, so I'll be doing that. Potentially doing a new budget. I've got some investments I need to make. Like, I've got to consider whether I want to put anything in crypto at the moment. Like, I know how to read the charts to see signs of reversals, but the problem is no one really knows what's going to happen in the crypto market. People act like they do when they really don't. So I've got to consider that. There's some stocks I've got to consider, like for the future, whether I want to jump in now or leave them for a bit. I'm looking at Square, Disney, Zoom, Chewy, DraftKings, Corsair, and Palantir. I don't have them at the moment. When I first heard about them, they were kind of a little bit overpriced for my liking. I think they're down a bit now, but I have a feeling some of them might dip lower. Got to look into that. That's some extra work I'll be doing today. Whereas what are most people doing? Nothing. There's another juicy tidbit I'm looking at. I'm probably going to make this in my own separate video because it's quite important. But basically, I think Nancy Pelosi, she's like some 81-year-old in the US, and she's like part of some government over there. Like, I can't believe I can't think of it at the moment, but basically her and her husband will make some investments, and if you look at them, they actually have outperformed everything, including Bitcoin, over the last several years. It absolutely reeks of insider trading. But what you can actually do is you can go onto clerk.house.gov, you go into disclosures, you go into financial disclosure reports, you go into search reports, you search Nancy Pelosi, and you click search, and then you can see all the trades she's made. She usually does like call options and that kind of stuff. Basically gambling on whether the price is going to go up or down either way. So you can kind of check what she's doing, and usually she'll be right because chances are she knows something. Like, the government's going to make some announcement that's going to move the stock price one way or the other, and she knows this in advance and makes trades based on that. So what I'll also be doing later today is going to have a look. Now, the problem is I think there's quite a bit of a time buffer between the time she makes the trades and the time they're disclosed. Like, sometimes they can be like more than 30 days out. So maybe the announcement that's moved the price one way or the other has already happened. But nonetheless, it's something I'm going to have a little gander at. That's some juicy stock information. Like, I'll probably post it somewhere. I don't think I'll make it a YouTube video just because it'll take too long to get out to people. I actually got the idea of the Stocked Up Show. I can't remember the official name of their channel. I'm subscribed to them and I watch their videos every day. But the guys are called Mike and Tom. Stocked Up with Mike and Tom or something like that. They had a video just the other day about it. I'll probably just like pinch some of that info and just whip it into a TikTok or an Instagram post or something. But yeah, something very useful to look at. And that's another thing. Like, I watch like finance crap all the time. Like, I just watch other people and learn from them, while everyone else is just watching entertainment, really. Like, each video I watch gives me a little bit of information, and like, I watched so much of that stuff throughout 2021, like things started to stick. Like, when I first heard about, I'll just rapid fire some, like Ethereum gas fees, smart contracts, signs of reversal, bullish, bearish, double top, head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders, ascending wedge, descending wedge, fiat regulation. Well, fiat regulation is not a thing, but everything I just listed was shit that I had no idea about at the start of 2021. And when I first heard them, I didn't know anything about them, but eventually I just listened to enough stuff. I learnt, watched enough videos, and I learnt the terms that kept popping up. And then they started to stick in my head, and now they make sense to me. So the point I'm getting at is I also basically spend some free time learning about stuff as well. And what do most people do? Spend their time on entertainment. And again, if you want to spend your time on entertainment, that's your choice and all that. But in about 5 years, when I know a bucket load about investments, I mean, I already know a fair bit, but when I know even more about investments, and when I'm really in shape, I'm in pretty good shape at the moment, to be honest. Nowhere near my peak, but compared to the average person, pretty good shape. When I'm in even more good shape in 5 years, when I know a lot in 5 years, when I have so much extra money in 5 years because I kept my part-time job, when I've completed my studies, whereas most people just, you know, I mentioned in the other video as well, they get a uni degree and they call it, they call it a career, like, good job, we're done. When I do extra studies and I can leverage higher salaries because the benefit I provide to the businesses are a lot more valuable than what everyone else can, and people with the skill set I'll have will be in short supply. When I have all that and people don't, they're probably going to come after me saying I got lucky or that it's bullshit. Now, I know there is some element of that. Like, there's always some snobby kid out there whose mummy and daddy runs the company and he doesn't have to go through all the crap I've been through, all the getting up early during trimester break to go to the uni workshops to learn how to make a resume, learn how to do a job interview, learn how to make a cover letter, learn how to network, all that crap, learn how to make your LinkedIn profile. But for those of you who came from, I wouldn't say nothing, I mean, I did have a roof over my head, but basically virtually nothing. For those of you who are like me, who are putting in the work, your rewards will eventually show. You just have to stick with it. Like, a lot of the hard work I put in years past have already shown now, which is why it's easier for me to stick to it because I know it works. Like, all those years of, like, most people go months without seeing progress in the gym. I went years without seeing it because I was doing shit wrong. I wish I had someone like me when I was like 18, 19, 20 to help guide me through all this crap, like I mentioned before, the wrong career path, like doing economics instead of looking at where the job growth is, having bad grades because I didn't care, following the wrong gym advice, all that kind of stuff, like not really caring about study. I wish I had that earlier, like I'd be a lot further ahead, but better late than never. So I'm rewriting the wrongs of the past and fixing up some shit now. But like, that's going to show in 5 years, and everyone who's not putting in the work are going to complain. Like, I don't get why people want to just go ham on everything and try and enjoy everything when they're young because that's the, quote, best years of your life. Says who? Like, who said your 30s can't be the best year of your life? Who said the 40s can't be the best years of your life? Who said the 50s can't be the best years of your life? 60s, 70s, whatever. Like, there's a lot of life left. Like, my personal guess is that people are like, well, I look better when I'm in my 20s, so I'll go partying now and whatnot. If you take care of your skin and you take care of yourself through the gym and like have a clean diet and stuff, and like your skincare routine and all that, and even shit like Botox to prevent some wrinkling and laser hair removal and shit like that, you can look young in your 30s and stuff too. You can still look good in your 30s. Who said you can't? Another guess of mine is that they want to, have a family and kids by then or something. That's your choice. But I don't think it's wise to be fixated on that without worrying about your finances first, like, especially in the state of the economy. Like, just look at all the factors, like the increased inflation and everything like that. Like, I don't know how people aren't worried about that, but they're worried about, like, not being able to have kids when they want and shit like that. That's just mind blowing to me. So the last few minutes have turned into a bit of a rant, but I should probably wrap this up. I have no idea how long this is. I'm recording it in split segments. Like when I lose my train of thought, I'll stop recording. When I need to take a breath, I'll stop recording. Stuff like that. But just to wrap things up, um, it's January 3rd, 2022, and I'm already 7 days ahead, and I'm going to continue to be ahead, and I'm going to put in the behind the scenes work with study, with side hustle, with gym, with my career, with my part-time job, with my investments. Each week, all those boxes get ticked. Most of them will get ticked each day. Like, obviously, I can't work at my career and my part-time job and do work on my investments and do work on my side hustle and go to the gym and do some study all on the same day. Like, each day, probably about 3 of those will get ticked. Like most days, I'll have either my career job or my part-time job and some investments. Like, I'll just listen to some investment stuff while I'm at my corporate gig, while I'm doing my work. Like, I've learned how to multitask. I never used to be able to do that, but I can do it pretty well now. And then I'll listen to it at the lunch break at the retail gig because I can't really have an AirPod in. I can't really have an AirPod in there. So each day, each day I'll work and I'll do investments, and I'll gym 4 to 5 times a week. I said in my 2022 goals video that I was going to gym for 10 hours a week, which would include a 5-day split. I will try, but with study, I don't know how feasible that's going to be. Just because there's a lot more work in Australia taxation at CPA than I previously thought. I assumed it was going to be a bit easier because I've already done CTA 1 foundations at the Tax Institute, but there's a little bit more, I guess, legislation heavy content in the CPA tax unit as opposed to more of the calculation side. But I am only in like 10 pages into the book, so maybe it will be similar, but the point is I might not be able to gym that much. But if I'm not at gym, I'll be studying. So that's another box I'm ticking. Like, I'm always ticking a box of some sort. Another side tangent, it's important not to do everything. Like, if I started to try and learn how to fix my car and learn how to, I don't know, build a house on the side of things and learn how to play an instrument, it'd be getting too much. So I'm operating at pretty much my maximum capacity at the moment. I'll stick to these main 6, and that's pretty much it. Like, that's about as productive as I can be. If I did something else, everything else would probably slip to a point where I wouldn't be happy with. Like, I don't want to gym anything less than 4 days a week. If I picked up an instrument, for example, or tried to learn a language, then gym would have to be dropped back a bit, which I'm not having, so nothing else will seep into my core 6 priorities. Or like study would have to suffer, but if I did less study, the chances of me failing would drastically raise, and I'm not having that either. But anyway, before I start rambling on again, just keep putting in the work, find your core areas you want to focus on and keep working at it. Don't quit your job to start your business on the side. Go to the gym, work out, it's good for you. Learn how money works. Inflation is devaluing your dollar, so invest it. What investments to make? Well, there's plenty of resources out there. The general tracking the markets index, like the ASX 200 or S&P 500, although we're not too certain about how that's going to perform this coming year. There's a lot of other factors related to that, but I've talked long enough. But the main thing is just to keep putting in the work. There are other people out there who are putting in the work, and they're going to be rewarded later on. Don't get caught up in all the FOMO of everyone out at festivals, out partying, all that crap. you may feel like you're missing out on that, but those people are going to miss out on their chance to be financially well off in the future. I mean, they could be, but you're going to be even more well off financially. That's what I was trying to say. Every day you put in work and they don't, that's one day you get ahead. It's January 3rd. I'm already 7 days ahead. That is all.